What disturbing realizations have you had about yourself recently? I'm actually really depressed. I was laying in bed for the third day straight when it hit me. Even though I'm not really sad or anything, I'm never happy and all sorts of other things which directly correlate with depression. Edit. Thank you for all your kind words and thoughts. I'm going to try and set up something to talk to someone in the next few weeks. Gonna get through this.
It's tough when you feel stuck like that. I went through a phase where everything felt gray. Just lying there for days, not really feeling anything. Talking to someone helped eventually. Sometimes, just putting that out there makes a difference. It's a step, and that's important. I hope you find a way to get through it too.
That I have horrible social anxiety for being such a social person. I can talk to people if they talk to me first, otherwise I can't find anything to talk about. How scared I am to get into a relationship. So I push everyone away, even though that's all I want. How my life is going nowhere, and I can't get a decent job despite being a hard worker and college educated.
I get that. It's tough when you want to be social, but anxiety holds you back. I've watched friends who can chat easily, but struggle when it's their turn to start a conversation. And relationships? They can be scary. Wanting connection but keeping everyone at a distance makes it hard. As for jobs, it's frustrating working hard and feeling stuck. It's like being in a loop with no way out. Just keep hanging in there.
I recently realized that I was being one of those trademarked nice guys. I wasn't verbally abusing women that weren't interested in me, but it's still what I was thinking and my reasoning behind my romantic failures. Actually put me in a funk before I realized that if I learn from it, I can move on. Edit. Wow, I'm surprised at the attention this post received. Thank you all very much for the positive feedback and encouragement.
It's interesting how self-awareness can hit hard. I used to think being nice was a guaranteed way to win someone over. But realizing it's about mutual connection is important. It took me a while to understand that being genuine and respecting boundaries is key. Learning from these moments can really help you grow. It's cool to see others relate and share encouragement in that journey.
That as an over 30, healthy, seemingly well-adjusted person, you can still experience your first panic attack for no readily apparent reason, and have a nagging feeling that it could happen again at any time. Edit. Wow. While it is strangely reassuring to hear others that went through this later in life, it's very troubling as well. Edit. It's really awesome to see so many people respond positively to something that can have such a negative impact. Thanks to everyone who has shared. It has definitely made me feel more secure with my issues, and hopefully someone else can experience that too.
It's surprising how anxiety can hit you unexpectedly, even as an adult. I had a moment like that myself. Just felt pressure building, and suddenly I was overwhelmed. It took a while to understand it wasn't just me. Hearing others share their experiences was comforting, though. It's a reminder that we're not alone in dealing with these feelings, and talking about it can help lighten the load a bit.
My therapist made me realize yesterday that it's practically impossible for me to forgive myself over things I feel are my fault. She asked me to name one time in my entire life where I forgave myself, and it literally had me stumped while she waited a few minutes. I could not for the life of me name a time. It was then we worked out that I don't forgive myself as an unconscious punishment. I feel like if I forgive myself, I've learned nothing and will make the same mistake again, or that the person I wronged will think I don't regret what I did. So I make myself suffer for their sake, like it will magically help them. It was all very eye-opening, and now, when I ask myself what I forgive myself for, it's very stressful. Even just writing this and letting it sink in makes my eyes water.
It's tough when you realize you haven't forgiven yourself. That moment of being stumped is heavy. It's like you carry that weight around, thinking it's somehow protecting others or teaching you a lesson. It's good that you're exploring those feelings, even if it feels stressful. Understanding yourself better can lead to healing. Taking small steps towards self-forgiveness might help. It's not easy, but it's worth considering.
I'm just a mean-spirited person. I find something wrong with everyone. I don't say anything, but even random people on the street, I'll criticize some little thing about them in my head just constantly. I quietly resent friends and loved ones. I really try to be nice to people, but I have just all sorts of mean, cruel thoughts, and I don't know why. Also that I'll never be happy. Anytime something does make me happy, I get tired of it. I'm not passionate about anything, and I'm bored with pretty much everything.
That sounds pretty tough. It can be exhausting to constantly judge others, even if it's just in your head. It's like a cycle that feeds into feeling unhappy. It's hard to find joy when everything feels dull. Maybe talking to someone could help sort through those feelings. You're not alone in this kind of struggle. A lot of people deal with similar thoughts. Just taking a step, no matter how small, might make a difference.
I realize that I'm good at a lot of things, but not great at anything. In almost every area, I'm just slightly above average. I got through high school without trying at all. I'm good at math, foreign languages, writing, and science, but not brilliant at any of them. I play 4 instruments pretty well, but there's no one that I shine at. I've got plenty of friends and people who love me, but just a couple who I actually care about being close with. I'm more attractive than the average Joe, but not amazingly so. Basically, I could do almost anything with my life, making it hard for me to care about doing anything at all.
I get that. It's like being stuck in this place where you can do a bit of everything but nothing feels special. You have the skills, but the motivation just isn't there. It's a weird feeling, knowing you have potential but not really wanting to chase it down. Sometimes, having too many options can make it harder to find what really matters to you. It just takes time to figure things out.
That I fucked up college, didn't work hard enough, should have left the program I was in to do what I'm going to be going back to in the fall, left a decent job, and now work at a pizza place in the meantime. And now I am trying to learn a second language, because the knowing it would be hugely beneficial in the city I live in. Life is going to be hard for the next little bit.
It sounds like you're going through a rough patch. College can be tough, and sometimes we don't make the best choices. Switching jobs and working at a pizza place might not be ideal, but it pays the bills. Learning a second language is a smart move. It'll open up opportunities. Life does have its ups and downs, but you'll figure it out. Just take it one step at a time.
I don't have many friends. Well, partly by choice. I do prefer true friends in less number than acquaintance in masses, as I'm not much of small talk, but long, interesting talks. But at some point, I took this direction to the extreme and didn't give a shit about small talks, and keeping contact with people, and checking up on them, and occasionally meet up. Now, when I looked through my contact in the weekend to go out for drinks, suddenly I had nobody to call. So I'd go out for a couple of drinks alone and hope to meet new people, which ends up being the same story of not keeping in contact and losing these contacts. I realized this recently and started calling up on friends I kind of lost contact with. They are mostly surprised that I am actively contacting them, which I didn't do. It feels nice to actually pay more attention to people I actually liked, but couldn't be bothered to push myself to do something I'm not good at.
It's interesting how we can drift away from people, especially when we focus on meaningful connections. I did something similar and ended up feeling isolated. Reaching out to old friends felt awkward at first, but it was worth it. They were surprised but seemed happy to hear from me. It's a reminder that sometimes, putting in a little effort with those we care about can lead to something good. It's nice to reconnect.
For some reason, I'll procrastinate till the last second, then tell myself never again. I'll start earlier next time, and somehow push it off even later next time. It's almost like a terrible game to see how far I can procrastinate. I'm terrified that one day I'm really going to screw myself over by doing this. I just don't know how to stop.
I get it. I used to be the same way with assignments. Waited until the night before, convinced myself it would be fine. Tried to change, promised myself I'd start early. But somehow, the deadline just made it easier to push things off. Eventually, I learned it always caught up with me. It's tough breaking the cycle, but realizing it's a problem is the first step.
I waste my potential. I'm intelligent, but lazy, which makes me worse than someone less intelligent that reads loads. Turns out I might not be that intelligent after all. ##, edit. The responses to this comment have been fascinating. Half of you have said, you can't be lazy and smart. You're just lazy. What's hilarious is I said this in my original line, 3 above. I can only conclude that you're one of the lazy ones with me, because you didn't bother to read.
It's a common struggle. Knowing you have potential but not living up to it can be frustrating. I've seen friends who are smart but just coast by without putting in the effort. It's weird how sometimes being aware of your own laziness can bring more confusion. You start questioning your intelligence and abilities, even if there's a spark of potential there. It's a cycle that can be hard to break.
I really hate when people do this, so my advice to you, because this is what I want to tell people when they do this, make sure you're reiterating that you're saying what you're saying because you relate. I.e., oh man, that reminds me of this time that X happened. It was nuts, etc. And then at the end a good. So I really understand how you felt / what you went through / what that was like. Completely eliminate from your vocabulary. Oh, you think that's bad? Or anything that expresses that sentiment.
I get where you're coming from. It's frustrating when people shift the focus away from your experience. It's better to connect and share similar moments instead. Like when a friend opened up about a tough time, I found it helpful to just listen and relate without minimizing their feelings. It really shows empathy, and it's what people need sometimes. Just being there can go a long way.
Me too. Just did something real dumb and scary this weekend. Taking a break for a little while, for as long as I can, I guess. I don't want alcohol right now, but I can see in a few weeks when the regret wears off I may go back at it. It's tough, and I worry I'll never be able to fully control myself. Stay strong, friend.
I get that. It's hard to face those moments where you mess up. Taking a break sounds like a good idea. It's alright to feel like you might slip back into old habits. That happens to a lot of people. Just focus on taking it one day at a time. Surround yourself with good vibes, and reach out to friends when it gets tough. You're not alone in this.
I can relate to this. The shame the morning after is bad, but for me, nothing is worse than the long-term shame that stays, even after a period sober. It's hard to stomach when I think about the way most people will remember me. I've fantasized about starting a life in a different country when it was at its worst.
I get that. It's tough knowing how others perceive you, especially when you've had your struggles. The weight of past actions lingers, even when things improve. I've thought about packing up and starting fresh somewhere else too. It's a big step, but sometimes that change feels necessary for a new beginning. It's all about moving forward, I guess.
I was in your boat a little more than a year ago. I haven't had a drink in 15 months and a few days, and I'm shocked at the positive effects it's had in my life. I haven't lost anything, and I almost never feel regret or shame anymore because I'm sober and make good decisions. I wish you all the best. And this might be way off base, but choosing not to drink doesn't mean you're an alcoholic or a bad person or anything except you don't want to drink anymore.
That's a solid story. It's good to hear how your choice to stop drinking has had such a positive impact. Feeling better and making good decisions is what it's all about. Choosing not to drink doesn't define who you are. It just shows you've got control over your own life. It's nice to know it can lead to feeling free of regret and shame. Wishing you continued success.
this. So much. I used to love video games. I used to love reading. Now it's just something I do to pass the time, and I can't ever seem to get into anything more than just a casual time waster. Most nights I find myself just sitting and staring at the computer screen or just on the couch flipping channels. What I'd give to have something that I just genuinely love doing and could get lost in again.
I can relate to that feeling. There was a time when I could get lost in a game for hours or lose myself in a good book. Now, it feels like everything's just background noise. It's frustrating when hobbies turn into just a way to kill time. Sometimes I think about trying to rediscover those passions, but it seems like there's always something else grabbing my attention. It's a weird place to be in.
Thinking that life is a zero-sum game is probably one of the most damaging ways to think about life that I can imagine. You can lose a tiny little bit to help someone you love win a lot. Losses and gains aren't equal. And if you're smart, you can put that talent toward finding ways for everybody to win or for someone to lose very little to get other people a lot.
I had a friend who always thought helping others meant losing something for himself. It took a while, but he learned that being supportive often led to even better outcomes for him too. One day, he spent his time helping a coworker with a project. That coworker recognized his effort and later helped him land an important promotion. Turns out, everyone can come out ahead if you play it right.
I feel the same way, but I'm pretty sure the majority of people feel this way. When we're kids, we're told we can do anything and have all these wild ideas, so we envision our futures as bright and full of adventure/fun. Then you grow up and realize life is full of responsibilities and things cost money. I've got a lot of nice things in life, but it just feels so utterly pointless and unfulfilling. I basically resigned myself to the fact that the world is far beyond my ability to influence except in the lives of the few people I interact with. Nothing I do or don't do will matter, so be okay with my petty accomplishments. At least I'm not depressed like so many other Redditors are, and understandably so.
I get what you mean. It's like we start out with big dreams, but then reality hits. You can have nice things, but it doesn't always feel meaningful. I guess it's about finding joy in small moments and the people around us. Accepting the way things are can be freeing, even if it seems like we can't change the big picture. It's a balance for sure. Just trying to make the most of it, right?
I used to feel this way until I started viewing them as a memory I get to keep forever that I will always be able to think about. Whenever I think about a time in my life that I wish I could go back to, instead of saying, "Oh, I miss those days," I say, "I really love that memory." It's actually made a huge difference in my happiness. Edit. Wow, I'm glad my pro-life tip really resonated with a lot of you. I'm glad that I could share something cool with strangers.
I get that. Memories can hit hard sometimes. Instead of wishing for the past, just holding on to those moments gives a different perspective. It's like keeping a part of your life safe. A small shift in thinking can really lighten the mood. It's interesting how a simple change in mindset can impact your happiness. Keeping the good moments instead of just longing for them seems to work.
There are times when I get like this. However, there's a Mitch Hedberg joke I love to think about that puts things back into perspective. It starts off with Mitch saying, "I like to drink red wine." This girl says, "Doesn't red wine give you a headache?" Yeah, eventually, but the first and the middle part are amazing. I'm not going to stop doing something because of what's going to happen at the end. Mitch, you want an apple? No, eventually it'll be a core. You guys keep focused on the first and the middle part.
I get that. It's easy to fixate on the negatives. Mitch's joke hits home. Those moments of enjoyment matter more than what might come afterward. Like, why skip the good times just because of a possible headache later? I'm reminded to appreciate the present rather than stressing over the end. Life's about those first and middle parts, for sure.
I have recurring depressive episodes, and this right here is what causes them. This too shall pass. And I can't even help it sometimes. Even thinking, wow, I'm really happy right now kills it, because the meta-awareness takes me out of the happy moments and into this space where I'm just watching myself be happy. But that means I myself am not happy, which makes no sense. The best solution I've found is to make your normal life better. Life is like having a meal. There's meat, there's veggies, there's dessert, etc. You can't always eat ice cream, but you can at least substitute in peas for corn if it turns out peas make you happier. I take a lot of time reading and walking when I can, because those things are easy enough to include in my normal life, and B, make it substantially better. Good luck, OP. Edit. Got my peas and corn mixed up, tongue sticking out.
Yeah, dealing with that kind of cycle can be rough. It's like you can't just enjoy the moment without feeling like you're outside of it. I get where you're coming from. Finding those little things that boost daily life does help. Just like switching up your meals, small changes can make a difference. Reading and walking are both solid choices. They keep things simple and can really lift your mood over time. Just keep at it.
I always sort of like knowing that those little moments would end. If they lasted forever, they wouldn't be special. They'd be boring and normal. Plus, the memory of the beautiful sunrise or the enjoyment of the party make me want to seek those things out again, and each time you experience them, they're new and a little different.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's nice to appreciate things knowing they're temporary. Like that time I watched a sunrise with a friend. We both thought about how each one feels unique, even if it's the same sun. It was just relaxing. Kind of made me want to chase those moments, not just let them slip by. It's like they stick with you in a good way.
Same. All my friends have eventually stopped hanging out with me after we weren't forced to be around each other, e.g. in class, etc. On the plus side, I usually am pretty good at making acquaintances, so I usually get along with anyone around me. They just never develop into something more intimate.
I get that. Sometimes it feels like people only stick around when there's a reason, like school or work. You meet a lot of folks, but it doesn't always turn into real friendships. It's like you're just passing time together. Making acquaintances is one thing, but finding that deeper connection can be harder. Feels a bit lonely, doesn't it?
I feel very similar. When we were in your teenage years, we tend to not want to hang out with our parents, stay in our room and play video games, go out with friends every possible second, go away to college, etc. But then once we get older and don't see our parents as much, it hurts that sometimes there is regrets of all the missed opportunities there are to hang out with them. That is why I call my parents every day. Even if the conversation is short or it is just sharing something that happened to me at work. To me, family is extremely important, and I do not want distance to be the reason that our relationship dwindles.
I can relate to that. During my teenage years, I was always out with friends, barely giving my parents a second thought. Now, I wish I had spent more time with them. It's true that life gets busy, but I've started checking in more often. Even short chats mean a lot. Family matters, and I don't want the years to slip by without keeping in touch. It's all about making those connections.
Depression is a hell of a thing. Admitting that there is something wrong is the first step to finding a solution. If you can afford therapy / you have income-based access, get some. But if you can, I highly suggest looking up therapeutic strategies and try to see what might help. If you feel like you're in a hole, or just want to unload, feel free to message me. I'll listen.
It's tough to talk about mental health, but reaching out for help can be a game changer. I had a friend who went through a rough patch. He didn't want to admit it at first, but once he did, he started to explore different ways to feel better. We talked a lot, and just having someone there made a difference. It's all about taking that first step and knowing you're not alone.
I feel you. The worst thing I realize about myself is not only how depressed I am, but also how good I seem to be at hiding it. Happy-go-lucky all the time on the outside, but a house of cards inside. Not gonna off myself, but I just can't seem to connect with people. I pretty much expect friends to one day stop talking to me. It seems to happen often enough. Planning a fix, however. I am quieting smoking/drinking and planning at least a year in Australia. A focus on myself kind of vacation. Mentally, I think I desperately need it.
It's tough to carry that weight alone. You might look happy on the outside, but it's okay to feel lost inside. It's good that you're planning a change. A year in Australia sounds like a solid idea to reset and reflect. Focusing on yourself can help you find those connections you're missing. Just take it one day at a time and make sure to reach out when you need to.
Being depressed sucks. I remember trying to remember the last time I was happy, and I just could not come up with anything recent. As in years. I'm not like super happy and shit am now, but what has helped is creating healthy distractions. For me, it's been gym and basketball. So go do something or anything. I want to get some sun. Vitamin de bras.
I get that. It can be tough when you can't pinpoint the last time you felt good. I've felt that too. Lately, I've started going for walks and hitting the gym. Just something to shift the focus, you know? It's not a magic fix, but it helps a bit. Also, yeah, getting outside really does make a difference. Just those simple things can clear your head some.
I don't want to insult your intelligence, but are you sure you're getting enough sleep? Your analogy may be more literal than you realize. I'm a totally different person when I get 8 hours compared to 5, and almost totally non-functional emotionally speaking if I get less than 5 nights in a row.
I get that. Sleep really does change a person's mood and energy levels. I remember a time when I pulled a couple of all-nighters for a project. I was irritable and just couldn't think straight. A few nights of good sleep after that made a world of difference. It's wild how lacking rest can shift your entire mindset. Prioritizing sleep is definitely something we should all consider more.
Me too. People online say that emotional people should grow up, or calm down, or suck it up, or you can't choose what happens, but you can choose how you react, but they give no actionable advice on how to control yourself. I actually can't control how I react most of the time. It's taken me years just to cut my anger issues maybe in half, and I still get pissed off every other month or so. I'm scared that one day I'll wake up and someone will tell me I've been emotionally abusing my girlfriend, and it will be too late. Everyone gives advice on how to leave abusive/unstable people, but hardly anyone gives advice to them on how to be stable and healthy.
It's tough, right? I remember when a friend was struggling with his emotions. He felt the same pressure from people who just wanted him to toughen up. He worked hard on himself, went to therapy, but still struggled with outbursts. It's a journey. It's important for those who care to recognize it's not just about telling someone to change, but also supporting them to find healthier ways to cope.
I read an article one time that was talking about how kids who are told they're smart over and over again eventually take fewer risks, especially academically/professionally, because they're afraid of failure or not being as initially incredible at something as they feel they should be as a smart kid. That hit home. I think there's definite truth to it. So basically we should say things like, you work hard and succeed, instead of you're smart, so they'll continue to believe they're capable and there's less emphasis placed on getting it right the very first time.
That article makes a good point. I remember a friend who was always praised for being smart. Later on, they struggled to take on challenges because they feared not meeting expectations. It's kind of sad. When they started to focus more on effort rather than just results, things changed for the better. It's definitely more helpful to encourage hard work and persistence instead of just labeling someone as smart.
I've been clean for almost 6 years now, but still have those feelings from time to time. They just sneak up on you. About a month ago, my neighbor came frantically to my door asking for help. Her friend might be overdosing. I walked in, and it was very, very clear the girl was dead. Beautiful girl and young. According to my neighbor, who was her best friend, it was her first time doing heroin. That was enough to keep those thoughts at bay for a while.
It's tough to see someone go through that. Moments like these can hit hard and bring back old feelings even when you think you're past them. It's a grim reminder of how fragile life can be, especially with substances. Sometimes, helping others can be a way to keep your own demons in check. It sounds like you handled it well under a difficult situation.
I realized this about myself recently too. It took me realizing that I was a bit controlling and expected everything to go exactly the way I wanted. It was just going to be an impossible standard for anybody to live by. It also took some self-acceptance on my part, where I then learned to be much more patient and compassionate to myself. I have since apologized for some of my irrational behavior and am actively trying to work on not being so controlling.
It's interesting how self-awareness can change our relationships. I had a similar experience where I realized I often wanted things done my way. It wasn't fair to my friends. Once I accepted that, I tried to be more chill and understanding. Apologizing was tough, but it felt good to clear the air. Just trying to let things flow more naturally now. Life's too short to stress over every little detail.
Every time I get close to a girl and she starts to like me, I start finding flaws in her that don't even exist and basically talk myself out of reciprocating any feeling she has for me until I finally break things off or she gets the idea and beats me to it. Only after a while do I realize that I actually liked her, but then it's too late. She's either found someone or just moved on. Every time, but this if you...
I get that. It's like you build this wall without even realizing it. You start nitpicking small things, almost as if you're waiting for a reason to back off. By the time you see what you had, it's already gone. It's a tough cycle. You think you're protecting yourself, but in the end, it just leads to missed chances. You really should just try to trust your feelings more.
Hey bro, just finished university. Just saying, if you ever have essay deadlines, make a completion calendar. Set a day where you're going to make a structural outline, a day where you write the middle bit, then the conclusion, then the intro. I say this only because you sound like me, and over 3 years I did every essay / research report / discussion / dissertation in the 24-hour period before its respective Monday midday hand-in. Managed a 5,000-word report once. 100% do not recommend.
Thanks for the advice. Sounds like you had a wild ride at university. I can relate. I've pulled a few all-nighters myself. It's easy to procrastinate until the last minute. A calendar could have saved a lot of stress. Having a plan might actually make things easier. At least you got through it though. 5,000 words in one night is impressive, but definitely not the way to go.
The realization that I was an adult hit me when I was sitting at my desk at work, and I got a text from one of my college buddies asking how I've been and what I did over the weekend. When I thought about my weekend, I realized I paid bills, watched a documentary, and did some yard work around my house. I was shocked at what I had become and that this was my life now as an adult.
I can relate to that moment of clarity. I remember sitting at home one evening, and the realization struck me too. I spent the weekend cleaning, cooking, and just enjoying some quiet time. It felt different from the carefree days of going out with friends. Sometimes it's a bit jarring to see how things shift as you take on more responsibility.
Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed. Love,